first, let's see. Put that there for now to get this. Now, there's a couple ways to do roofs. A lot of these slanted ones are kind of all the same. Although be aware, some of them don't. There's still a bug where some of them don't fit, even though they're supposed to. But if we can look at these, you see they have, it's a two-piece and a two-piece. That's how they go, right? That's the main thing. What you can do, well, two things you can do. If you don't put a ceiling and leave it like this, you can slide it one this way or one this way. And you can do that for, as it goes up. So the bigger it is, you can really kind of do that. And it won't matter if you do like one spacing. It might be a little gap there, but as far as like noticing it, you kind of won't. Like, if you see here like this, like they give you some leeway. You can kind of bump it here. This is on top, and then you can go like that. So you have that. And if you go like that, it's there, okay, but it's doable. And like if you have a really, really big, like wide building, you doing that enough times, you could definitely gauge, get extra space. But just try to keep the math in your head that each one moved once. You need to move at least, you got to move them all, and then you got to make sure you move the other ones too. So you got to kind of play with that math. You don't want to just move just one because you're going to throw everything off. You got to move at least two. So maybe bump the bottom one in one, and then the one on the other side bump in one, and then go up, that kind of thing. Now that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is if you want is when you're building and you just start building, just build up. Like, all right, I'm going to build up, and then when you get to a certain height, and this is kind of what works well when you have like just when you build the floor, is you just kind of build, like I'll show, if you build up, you just, before you even build the wall, build one wall, build the roof up, decide when you want to stop, and then build the roof down, and wherever that other side comes down, that's where you build your other wall. And if you've built the floor like I did, you can move that wall wherever you want. And then like if something happens where like it doesn't fit, you can create a ledge like this and go, okay, I'll move it in more, and then you'll have the little space, and you could do something like that. So that's another thing you can do. The other thing, and kind of what I also sometimes like to do, it depends. Sometimes you might make a roof and might screw up, and don't be afraid to knock it all down. Knock the roof down, start again. But the other thing is to put another, and I think a lot of builds like blueprints already do this. We'll use the wood to do again like this. And so say you're like, screw it, I'm gonna build, this building's gonna have a ceiling basically, right? As you can see how I'm doing this, and all these spacings look scary, but have pieces to answer them because we've been working with even numbers. Now you can see actually, can we go one more? Okay, boom. Now see, we can't now. I already know. That's funny. What I've noticed is that if the big one like leaves that like extra gap, that like little extra space, the second one, and then I think this one usually, Actually, I don't even think it's just this one. Yeah, boom, boom. Okay. Now with this, again, you're gonna go around the whole thing afterwards. And again, I do this for certain reasons because, like, one, you'll just have a better time, I think, worrying about like getting it, like just having that is just, I think, it kind of does two things. One, feel like it ends up fitting better. You don't throw off, it doesn't throw off the designs off as much when you put the floor in the middle and leave the walls separate. Two, you can now, if you want, you can extend the deck out. If you want to just put like an actual big piece, you go, oh, I'm gonna make a deck now, and you can actually go off, you know, and put that like that. So, but then also, it's almost like a double check, because if you can't get the long pieces around your build, like without a weird gap, that's gonna let you know that something else is definitely off as well. So like, even though, you know, so even though that this doesn't make it to the end, we know we can now just go here and go. And this might not, it will fit. Nope. Yeah, it will. Perfect. See. Oh, no, look at this. Now this little gap. So this is a little off, but that's okay. Because like I said, when that big piece doesn't work, usually this little guy, the second biggest one, and then the third biggest one will do the trick. So, now that we have that as like a ceiling, when we deal with this roof, we won't have, like, and here's another thing, like, it won't, again, now you have a space to kind of move it, but here's a little trick I've also learned, which you could do. If you're like, okay, you know, you can go here, and you can go in one more before it goes red, right? If you really want to go further in, and you're like, you don't care, you can, and I've done this before, build, you go and you take this again, and you actually bump this in. It's hard to see right now, because it's nighttime. So you bump, boom, 1, 2, and then 3, 4, and you can basically put this anywhere, then. So at the edge, 1 space, 2 space. If you put something there, it may not be the prettiest thing, but now you can put that, you could start that roof wherever you want, you know? And now you might have a little ledge. You could put maybe a gate, or maybe put another thing around that, just some kind of flair. But that will also be a way to kind of deal with the roof kind of thing. But yeah, so in this situation, we're going to try our luck. Also, when you're placing the roofs, I definitely recommend, you know, you could start in the middle with one of those pieces to see what light go up and come down. But then what you're going to also want to do is use these edge pieces. For instance, and some of them are easier to tell than others. We're gonna try to think. We're just gonna use this one. You can see one side is wood. Actually, that striped side, that's the interior. Usually when the roof hangs over, that's the side that sticks out. And these two, again, are pretty good. You know, you could slide these kind of anywhere. These ones kind of are cheating. But that's why if you're going to do that method where you put like an extra flat piece around, you're going to want to do it long ways too, to pop these up as well so they all line up. I'm trying to wait for it to get a little bit brighter out. This is nothing you can kind of count. But I think here... Actually, you know what? And even though you can kind of slide this one wherever, I think you want to get it to about there. I think that's... Is that the one? That's the edge? Yeah. You want that to be at the edge like that. And see, if you notice, the space is 2. But that's not terrible. Now you have a couple options. One, they have wall pieces for these. They're all the way down here. If you're ever wondering what the half tall pieces are for, it's for this. See? So you can just stick 2 of these in here. I said always get to lock. Something like that. Although I actually think what you probably want to do, not the one you want to use. They actually have proper colored ones. I believe those are these ones. There you go. Now when doing something like this, with this, and where this is at, I probably, and now notice it's like there's two 2x2 pieces in between. So you could bump in each side once and eliminate one of those pillars in the middle there. So we might actually do that because now we want to see how bad this, see how this top goes. Now we can also double check. This is where I usually will play around and kind of be, alright, well I'll take one of these guys now. And again what I do is I will lock it to this. That's the best way to tell. And you're going to see here that there's a gap. Now with this, I don't... As again, there's a couple things you can do. These are a couple things. I purposely kind of just did this all whatever to see, you know, how I would go about fixing this. Now first, you could check to see, can we get another roof piece on top? You might be able to. You lock it there. That's too much. And it's not, and that's going to be too much. Look, it goes over. So that's definitely out of the question. And as far as the top part goes on these, you're not going to, you can do that, right? But you're going to have like a weird gap. It's doable, but it's not ideal. So my recommendation would probably be at this point, I'd go, well, you can do two things. One, you can stick flat pieces in here. You know, you can do this, right? And you got it's got that covered, and then you can kind of build, and then you can put the let's see. Whew. You can put on top. And again, not ideal, but it works. Right? You can kind of get it to look somewhat presentable or whatnot. But you're like, you know what? You know, you're not feeling that. You're like, I want to be a little bit more perfect. And I agree. So, at this point, I would knock that down. Get rid of these pieces. So, get rid of these. So you have a little bit of wiggle room when it comes to dealing with these. Obviously, moving them too much, it kind of gets out of hand. So we're gonna grab these again. And we're gonna so that's there. We're gonna go in one. We could even go in. No, we'll go in one. Go in one on that side. Go in one on that side. Now, now something like that. Let's see. That's a little bit better, right? And so you use the cursor to put that. Now, something like that. That should give us just enough to look pretty decent. And see what will happen is you'll have this kind of thing. So, just double check. Where it bumps into it, right? And sometimes you might not even want to use these roofs because they're just not, they don't work as well. See, the other rooftops, to be honest, the blue ones are kind of create like little weird. You can kind of use other pieces and they seem to like line up and do their job better. You'll get used to that kind of thing, as you can see. So sometimes I might even do that because it doesn't look that bad, and I'm like, you know what, that piece works. But if you don't want that and you want to be a little bit more, no, you're gonna make it fit. You're gonna make that shit fit. We're gonna. Now what you do, you just put one of these in here. Cover it with this, and that will give you a little bump, which will allow this to sit decent enough. See? And you know, again, not ideal, but that's that. The only other option, if you're still not happy with that, is like I said from the beginning. You can take one of these sides, say screw it. You don't even have to do both sides, you could do one side. And you could just so if we want to get rid of that last final one, we bumped each side in once to get rid of it once, we'll put it in again. So here on this side, we can do that. Or if we bump it in like that, so we did one whole one and then one, you can go on this side and do one whole one and then half. As you can see, that doesn't fit, but we can make that fit. Watch, we have to put, I think, this. See? Now what this will do is that now we will finally be able to stick this perfectly. What do you want, Oliver? Actually, it's funny. That's moved in so much that you can actually adjust it a bit. You can actually. Nope. Match that like that. And now that's a roof. Now I've definitely done things like this before. I definitely feel like this is probably one of the best ways to get the roof after you built the walls. See? And actually now if you look, I could probably, what I'd probably do, not that it matters, well, I probably would move these out each. I probably would redo that again. So I would do is what we want. And bump it here. So this is good to show like what can happen. Now that should fit perfectly. Now we line up this there. Yeah, because see, basically, I did the math wrong in the beginning. But now, if you notice, 2 and 2. Those were those pillars that were in between. Those are those ledges now that we've kind of put. That makes sense. Now that lines up. You can line up the roof. Like so, and it's a perfect roof now. And this piece will go perfectly on it. Ta-da! And that's how I would go down the whole thing. And now again, you might look and go, well, it's a little weird, but that's how I would end up doing a roof like that. And you know, for the most part, it's still smooth, it's still clean. It's not so bad, right? So that's basically how I would go about building a house, for the most part. One of the things I do like about building is that it's very much like a puzzle, and you have to figure things out. And that's kind of what we had to do here. Next up, though, and these are these roofs, and to be honest, like, once you unlock the Shogun roofs, you know, I kind of prefer those. They're easy to deal with, and I feel like they're cleaner and they're a little bit more versatile. But there's one catch with those. One catch. And I'm going to show you what that catch is. And really, I think it's a mess up on Epic's part. And I'll show you what I mean. It's when you look at the Shogun roof. And I literally just explained this in a Reddit post because someone was asking why they were having issues. And I found this out one time. And if you notice here, there's two sets of roofs that they have. There's this like weird one, and then there's these more like straight ones. And if you notice, they alternate. It's a weird one, straight one, a weird one, straight one, weird one, straight one, weird one, straight one. However, there is a gap here. So if you notice, you have a 4-piece. It's 4 length. See the middle number? It's 4. Then you have the 4 of this piece. Then you have a 6. And then you have the 8. But you don't have a 6 of the that piece. And that's very important because you can't make 10. There's no way to make 10 using these pieces. You only got 4 and 8. So the lowest you get is 12. But the thing is, if you had 10, you could make a whole bunch of different numbers. And well, it sounds a little confusing, but you'll see when I do this here. So what we're gonna do, and you know what, I'm gonna show you how I build into like a wall. So let's build something like over here. So first up, we're gonna get the foundation. And this is like, here you go, see? I want to build it into the wall. I want to build it in a bit. And now when you're doing that, see again, you can, when it's like that, you can like lock things all differently. So you really want to lock it, connect it to it. Okay. And we're going to do, I'm going to show you 2 different things. So here's one, and I'm going to show you the difference. This one I'll just build over here. And again, I lock them in, see, so you can kind of know. It's okay if it does that. I mean, for me, it's okay. If you don't like grass coming through, maybe not. But what I'm going to show you here is that sometimes you want to get a little bit more unique with your build. And so you might do something like this and create a cool little, like, L shape, right? So, as we discussed, as you see I went deep in there. I like to do that. Sometimes you gotta be careful though, because if it's too deep in, you're never gonna get it out. If you need to. But alright. So we have an L shape here. And this is what I'm trying to say. Well, you'll see with the roofs. So, when you have something like this, we're gonna put the, we're gonna do this. This is easy, and this is one of the reasons why I like the Shogun. And I usually will start with a corner piece. I don't know. And so he's like, you have so much movement where you want to put this. You know? I try to be, in the beginning, depending on like how quickly I want to close the roof of this. But I'll stick it about here, say. Oh, maybe not, that's hanging off. I like to have a bit of an edge. So I'll put it about here maybe. And then from there, it's just a matter of putting the pieces. Locking it. Boom. Boom, that looks like enough. Boom. See, and this locks pretty good. Don't have to get all weird with a bunch of different pieces. Locks in. And look at that. Didn't even have to try, and it matched up perfectly. Now from there, I mean, on really big, wide buildings, I'd probably put a floor down, and then another wall, and then go in again. And so you kind of have this like going in. Otherwise, you don't even have to. You can just basically stick another one of these on top. And actually, if you do it right, you could probably there. You know, do it like that, and you basically have like the roof, like that's it, like. I'd probably do a shorter one. Maybe this guy. Oh. Pretty much that's that, you know, like that's a pretty easy thing to do. You can just stack them as many times as you want and adjust them. The thing is that once you know that the bottom one matches, all the rest are going to match. And this is a pretty easy thing to kind of do because, you know, like it's like you just slide them in and it's going to work. Now, this other one is where it gets tricky because we're going to use a different piece as well. So again, I'd start off in the corner, right? And you know, just be like, okay, cool. Go here, throw a corner here. Maybe I'll do a half piece here. Now this is where it gets interesting. Now we're going to use this indented piece. This guy. Now you throw him in here. Actually, you probably want to not throw him in here yet. Probably get one more. One more of these, you think? Yeah, alright, let's say that. We'll do that. Throw this here. And you know, now you got that. Cool. Remember now, this would normally, if we had a 6-piece, this wouldn't be. I don't believe that this would be an issue. But since we do not, you're going to see how this creates a gap. Because having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 corners as opposed to 4, if you multiply that number by 2, because these corner pieces are 2 space, you get the number 10. If you make that an even odd number again, if you say 7, 2 times 7 is 14. If you look at the pieces, you can't make 14. You can't make 10. Like you could, if they had a straight 2-piece, you'd be able to. But they don't. The lowest piece they have is 4. So there's no way that you can get 10. You could do a 4 and 4, you make 8. But you already have an 8-piece. And then after 8, it's 12. You can't get to 10. So when you put those pieces like that, these corner pieces, I don't know why the math works like this, but when you do you do an odd number of corners, you're gonna run into a problem. And I'm gonna show you how that happens here now. Look, you can already see. You can already see that it's not gonna line up. And I'm telling you right now, no matter what you do, you will not be able to get this to work. There is no amount of pieces now that will get you the space to kind of recorrect the 10 spacings that these corner pieces do. You're just not going to get it. See? That's it. You might even come close to lining up. Like you're like, oh. But that's what you're gonna be left with. See? An extra 2 gap. An extra 2 gap. Might even be a 1 gap sometimes, but usually it's an extra 2 gap. That gap you can't fit anything in. And that gap happens because you have you only have odd pieces. So you cannot make an L shape and then top it off with the Shogun roof. It's just not going to happen. You have to have you have to have another corner. And you're like, well, how do I do that? Well, you can make a U shape. If you make a U shape, then you'll get an extra corner. Or if you make an S shape, you'll get an extra corner. And that's what you'd have to do. Otherwise, you're not going to get it. And the only thing you can do with this is if you cheat. By cheat, I mean make it look a little ugly, where you bump it in and you just drop it in there. And you make it indented. And that's kind of the only save you're going to have for that. That's really it. And take that's it. So next time you're making a Shogun building, keep it square. Just make sure you have those corner pieces. Make sure there's an even number of those, because then you can make the number. 2 times 4 is 8, right? 2 times 6 is 12. 2 times 8 is 16. 2 times 10 is 20. And yeah, you could even still make 20, right? I believe so, because you got a 16 piece and a 4 piece. So you can still make 20, right? What do you got here? Yeah, see? 16 plus 4, yeah, 20. So, even number of corners, good. Odd number, no. And that's it for that, in that sense. And that's basically most of, building tips and kind of like how I build. Other things I like to do, or other tips that are kind of cool to know, is that you might already know this, but you can stick pieces to the bottom of the foundation, and you don't even have to lock them. In fact, locking them doesn't work. Just point the little dot, and that'll go. And this is very useful, especially like if you want to create pillars. And once you got one, you can lock the other and drop it in. It goes right to the ground. So that's pretty nifty. Also, here's like a stone. See how the stone, you can take rid of that stone, so it won't let you build on it. Also, in difficult situations, you can utilize this, or if you can get to the corner, you can then kind of make sure it's there by like snapping it and then moving it to where you need to be. Because sometimes, and because the only way you're kind of able to do this is by being under it. Like if you're on top, there's no way you're gonna get that piece under it. See, unless you gotta like kind of move it down, and then you can kind of. But that's the thing, is like if you can get that, see, I got it. If you can get it once, cool. You can lock it. Then you just lock the next one to it, and now you can move that all where you want. You know you're good. That just happens for certain situations. where you're like, you're trying to do something like that. Trying to think if there's any other little tips. Um, that's basically it.